Hello, everyone. Welcome back to FutureWork, a weekly live show brought to you in partnership by HR leaders and Hacking HR, and also our friends at Joveo, the world's AI-powered recruitment marketing platform. Each week, we'll be joined by some of the world's leading HR executives and experts to discuss the latest in HR, technology, and the future of work. I'm Chris Rainey, co-founder at HR Leaders, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in crime. I keep saying partner in crime like we've ever done any crime together. Maybe the only crime we do is that we do the show every week. Matt Burns, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Serial crime.
Serial
Week
crime.
after
So is
week.
that I need to rebrand, basically. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Repeat offenders for sure.
Repeat offenders. And today we've got two other offenders, repeat offenders joining us. They're going to regret saying yes to joining us on the show at this point. We've got
Mm.
Britt Bloch, who's the Vice President of Global Talent Acquisition Strategy and Head of Recruiting at Naval Federal Credit Union, and our good friend Richard Gregory, who's a global future of work leader at Avanade. Welcome to the show, everyone. How are you?
Thank you. Good. Happy
Yeah.
to be here.
I think we got carried away having way too much fun backstage and that carried over as well. But before I jump in, very quickly for each of you, I gave a short intro. Just tell everyone a little bit more about you personally, the journey. If Britt, could you kick us off?
Absolutely. And Chris, thank you for the invitation to be here. I'm looking forward to the discussion with Richard. So again, my name is Britt Bloch. I work for Navy Federal Credit Union. We are a global credit union. They say we're the world's largest, which always sounds so exciting and
Who's
impressive.
they?
Everybody,
I'm
everyone.
joking.
We're
Yeah,
global.
no. I'm only
It's about
joking.
25,000 employees. Our mission is the members. We serve the military community and their families. And it's just such a wonderful culture. I've enjoyed being there so much. So I have a wonderful team of 125 brand strategists, recruiters. I report into Holly Courtwright, the CHRO, and it's just been a fantastic 4 years. So I'm excited to talk more about what we're doing today and learning from Richard. He's got an excellent background.
Yeah. Before we get to Richard, tell everyone about the jacket today, because I learned something new today. The red blazer. It does stand for something. I think that's
It
important.
does. Yes. So every Friday, as much as we can, because not many people have a lot of red in their wardrobe, but it's a deployment Red Friday. So Red Friday, you wear red to show your gratefulness towards those who are deployed. So it's Red Friday.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
That's very good.
Over to you, Richard.
Yeah, no, what a good way to end the week. I'm not in red, but I'm pink. Hopefully that's close enough. And Chris, Matt, an absolute pleasure as always. Thanks for having me, and I'm really looking forward to the conversation this afternoon with Britt. Hopefully our jokes aren't that bad that we get arrested at the end of this 45 minutes. But being partners in crime, I'm pretty sure they are. So my background, I've spent 20 years with one foot in the world of HR, one foot in the world of IT, kind of right at that crossroads. And hey, we are right there when it comes to AI. We need more HR leaders that can talk the language of digital and data. And hey, we need more of those tech leaders that can talk the language of HR. So really, really exciting time for HR to step up. It's going to be fun, scary fun.
Yeah, lad, you have to add the scary fun
Yeah.
at the end just for context. So as everyone can see, today's title for the show talking about how the future of work is informing today's organization. So let's jump in the first question of, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing organizations facing to keep up with the pace of rapid change in the workforce? We speak about this future of work, but we're living it. It's now. It's right now. We're in it right now. So I'd love to hear from everyone kind of what your overall views and perspectives are on the state of the landscape right now, and then we can jump into some of the topics. Britt, do you want to kick us off?
Sure, absolutely. What I'm experiencing a lot, one of the most significant challenges, it's really about balancing the pace of technological change with the capacity of the organization, because we need to have that capacity to adopt and integrate these changes. I also think that in companies today, there's a lot of internal resistance, and I think it results from fear, fear of the unknown, a lack of understanding of how new technologies will benefit them. I mean, establishing the why and what's in it for them up front is so critical. But I also think there's a challenge of bridging skill gaps. We still have legacy technologies, and then we've got new technologies. So it's a matter of balancing upskilling and reskilling, just so we can work effectively alongside the new digital tools and they require time, resources, commitment. But then I think also we need to maintain that alignment between new technologies and existing organization goals. That's critical. And I think what's super important is that technology is a tool that serves the strategic objectives rather than a disruptor that distracts from them. I've always talked about the fact that technology is a transformation enabler, but it's not intended to create transformation.
Well, free to jump in, guys. I'll wait for me.
No, I couldn't have put it better myself. I mean, there's tons of stuff there, Britt, that you mentioned that we'll get into. The skilling piece is going to be absolutely huge. I think the whole, how do you get employees to buy into this next scale of change, especially with AI that, let's be honest, is going to be disruptive to people's jobs. You are going to be asking people to upskill an agent to fundamentally replace their job. That's a huge trust thing that organizations are going to have to step into. I think if we look over the last 3 years off the back of COVID, actually trust within organizations was really high. It's now dropped off a cliff. And for organizations to actually implement and change, they're going to have to rebuild that trust. It's probably the number one, I would say, imperative for C-suites. And again, we'll get into a bit more about that. But I'm going to go, Chris, back to your question around future of work, because I kind of love the term and also hate the term.
Yeah.
Because the future of work is now. It almost makes it sound like it's something in the distance, but it's here now. It's omnipresent. It's going to be continuous change. I think it's the continuous future of work. There's always going to be something new. And I think employees are change fatigued out. Especially, again, dare I say, off the back of COVID, back to that trust piece. Everyone's exhausted, this constant evolution, but arguably we're about to go through the biggest seismic change in any of our careers. And I did use the word scary earlier, and it does genuinely scare me. Scares me with the opportunity, but also scares me how we're going to get there.
And that's, I think, the key, which is the opportunity is massive. But if we revert back to simply wrapping our old world in AI, we're not going to get the fundamental change that we're all looking for, because we've dug ourselves a pretty deep hole when it comes to things like trust, when it comes to things like integrity. And we have a great opportunity in front of us. Like it's transformative in its potential in terms of using AI differently. And Chris, we talk every single day with CHROs who are thinking about how they're going to deploy AI in use case scenarios in their organizations. And the biggest thing they're up against is what we talked about, which is trust within the organization. How do we convince people that this is going to be in their best interest and not just simply a precursor to reorganization or job loss? And what those people I can say is, in the 500 or so CHROs that I've talked to in the last 9 months about AI, not one has mentioned workforce restructuring. It's all been about augmentation. It's been about service level enhancement. It's been about, righting some of the wrongs around getting access to better data and more diverse data. And that's the opportunity we have in front of us. But I think it's incumbent upon C-suite leaders to bridge that gap through really solid change management and communication practices to get us to a place where we're at least all singing from the same song sheet and know that we're going to co-create the future together.
I agree. I mean, when I think about what you're talking about, I think what I described to my team, because there's so much automation and AI capabilities for the recruitment function, and that feels very threatening. But I think where the messaging needs to shift is that if we automate the redundant task, that is giving them more bandwidth to be thought leaders and more strategic with the value add work initiatives. So it's just a mind shift, but it does feel threatening.
I'm going to jump in and be my usual controversial self. Matt, you said something a minute ago that kind of piqued my interest, where you were saying you're talking to CHROs and they're all talking about AI for the HR function. What's really interesting is within organizations, the biggest the smallest opportunity is actually AI within HR. The biggest opportunity is AI within the rest of the business. And I wonder whether this is the opportunity now for HR to get a seat at the table and help enable value across the rest of the business. And maybe rather than navel gaze around going, how can we use this cool tech for HR? Maybe actually this is the opportunity now for them to partner with the CIO, for them to partner with the ops units, to bring the reskilling, reshaping, restructuring agenda to actually the rest of the organization. Because the one thing I think the last 18 months of AI has proven, organizations that don't have HR on this transformation journey are struggling to unlock the value. Now is the opportunity for HR to step up, but it's to step up outside of their ivory tower and function of HR. I think the other thing, and this is the inconvenient truth, for the last 18 months, I think we've all been a little bit nervous around truly saying what the impact of AI fully implemented is going to be. And I understand completely the reasons for that. We don't want to scare people. It's still infancy. There's still an element of trust. And of course, AI is there to augment. But I really think we've got to step into sooner rather than later the inconvenient truth that if we just throw this technology out there and we don't restructure, reshape, reskill, actually, we're going to leave all the value on the table. And equally, I think we lose that trust element. In some research that we've literally just published this week, 84% of CEOs are saying they're implementing AI to reduce some or to drive productivity, to reduce some level of employee activity. I don't think people are stupid. I think the longer we go on with this fallacy of nothing's going to change and it's just going to augment, actually, we're again damaging our credibility. Whereas if we actually, if we step into it and go, look, this is going to come, but you know what? We're going to support you. We're going to reskill. We're going to reshape. Everything's going to be okay, but things are going to be different. Because if we just throw it out there, I hate to say it, all the evidence shows that us as humans are lazy. And if we just shove AI out there without going through that reimagining of the workflow, nothing's going to change. If anything, we're going to drive down organizational productivity by FTE, not increase it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I did too. No, I was just thinking we have an initiative underway for talent mapping in our Enterprise Transformation Services Office, ETS, because it's important to do that talent mapping to identify where do we have skill gaps, where do we need skills for the future, but then investing in our employees, we really do prioritize internal mobility. So I think this is an opportunity to make it an exciting time for that upskilling and the reskilling. But Richard, you're spot on. Yeah.
It's, I mean, you mentioned their reskilling, skills-based organizations. I talk to a lot of CEOs. They go, oh, this is the latest exciting thing that HR's put on the table. But again, it's another one of these where you talk to most executives within the organization. They're struggling to understand where skills-based organizations will add value to their organizational chart or to their part of the organization. Like AI is the burning platform for a skills-based organization. It is the raison d'etre for HR to exist. I think it's a huge opportunity, like I say, for HR to get out of its own silo and go and add value to the rest of the business.
I agree. You know, the one thing, when you think about the productivity paradox, I think we all need to stress that we still need that human touch for the nuanced judgment, the EQ, the empathy, the decisioning. And where we don't want to go is that productivity paradox where there's over reliance. You still need to have that harmony between AI and human.
I agree.
I love that. Yeah, and Chris and Matt know I love to talk a bit about behavioral nudging, behavioral science. And it's in that exact area where I think this is a great opportunity. How do we help managers be the best that they can be? We've never been able to do that. We've never been able to do large scale behavioral change because it's just been too expensive, too complex. Actually, that is an area where AI has the opportunity to help me be the best that I can be. So I think you're right, Britt. There are huge areas that this is going to unlock to help us be more human, to help us be more personal, to think about AI in a responsible way.
all the more reason to transform the way that we do things. So to your point, talent management has traditionally looked like a one-size-fits-all approach, maybe some slight segmentation based on level or seniority or role, but largely because of the tools available to us and because of the resources available to us, keeping things pretty consistent and very compliance driven in a lot of cases. But now with AI, we have the opportunity to do personalization at scale, which creates so much more opportunity. But it does require HR to think about things differently, not default to, okay, we're going to roll out another skills-based program that affects everyone in the organization, but rather, what does that mean at the individual level? And how do we bring people on that journey with us to co-create?
Agree.
It's interesting you said earlier about HR seat at the table. I think I'd reverse it and say this is how you keep your seat at the table. I think we need to stop having that whole. If you're still in a company right now and you don't have a seat at the table, leave. All right, you know. So I think this is keeping your seat at the table.
I'm going to go one step further. Use your analogy and be disruptive, Chris. Maybe it's the chief seat at the table. Maybe actually this is the opportunity for CHROs to step up on that succession plan to CEOs. Maybe this is the opportunity for CHROs to lead those transformative initiatives within an organization.
You're seeing it now. You've got our good friend Chris Norbury is now the CEO of Eon, from CHRO to CEO. You've got Lena Nair, former CHRO of Unilever, now CEO of Chanel. You know, like I'm seeing it more and more than I ever have actually in the 20 years that I've been doing this. So organizations are realizing, some of them are realizing, but you have to have the right, obviously, HR leader in the first place to be able to.
And maybe even the title's wrong, Chris. Maybe if we take this one step further, actually the human within CHRO is wrong. I don't know what the answer is, but actually maybe it's for HR to use to own these bots, to own these agents, to own the AI. At the end of the day, they're an extension of the workforce. They are going to need managing, not performance managing, although performance management of AI may actually look quite interesting.
Not too far away, but yeah.
but yeah, I mean, they're just an extension of the workforce. The same with robotics. Maybe it is back to managing of all resources within an organization. So why shouldn't a HR leader from a workforce transformation agenda own AI?
But let's go beyond babysitting bots, please. Like, can we not? We don't. I get. Yes, I agree with you. And my concern is that we stop at you're responsible for your agent, you're responsible for your bot, and that's where HR gets off the train and then leaves the broader conversation around, to your point, how does that interwork in an ecosystem environment? Yes. I mean, at Atlas, we have an environment where people are going to have individual agents communicating with other agents, communicating with employees, and we do have a perspective on organizational design and how the work flows. But I'm really sensitive to the fact this can't be another compliance effort. We can't just simply wrap our old practice in AI and expect things to change.
No, it'd be a disaster.
It's got to be different.
Everyone in the chat, by the way, if you're in the chat, drop us your questions. I can see all of you here. I am listening. I am watching. You're right here on my screen. So if you've got any questions, throw them our way, and I'll throw them over to the panel.
Sorry, Chris, I'm going to pick up that last one because I made it as a tongue-in-cheek comment, but Matt, to your comment of lots of bots, look, there's an employee experience component to this. I often say the average employee has 88 different applications they have to use to get their job done.
Is that wow.
The way that we're the way we're going, we're going to end up with 88 different bots,
agents,
and no one's going to know which agent to talk to for what. I don't know if people saw the other week, OpenAI made a really interesting announcement that kind of flew under the radar. They talked around this new framework called Swarm, this concept of having a master agent.
Yes,
that fundamentally, and again, this is for HR to step up to make sure that we don't create a digital employee experience that actually is no different, if not worse, than the one that we've got today. And that's going to impact all the metrics, time to productivity, that again, leaders should be caring about.
Well, one of the first things that when we implemented Atlas, and if people aren't aware of it, it's the world's first AI copilot for HR. One of the first requests we got was, hey, can you integrate this into our Teams environment? Because we don't want to add another app Right. So no,
Yeah.
so which we did immediately, which is amazing now. So now it kind of shows up in the flow of work during the HR meetings, the LT meetings. It's right there. You ask the question in the chat, and then all of our content research surfaces in Teams. And we
Oh,
saw
that's cool.
immediately the uptake was, not I won't say 10x, but exponential. And it was the same with Slack. Hey, Chris, can we have it in our Slack? Because that's where we have it here. And so we were like, okay, let's not try and create a whole. Yes, we have our app and we have our web interface, but people want it to show up in the flow of work, so they're actually going to be using it, talking about that employee experience.
And that's the next stage. You've gone that first step, and that's actually pretty transformational because even a lot of tools out there aren't even thinking in the flow of work. But that next step, I don't even need to or want to know what agent I'm engaging with.
Right.
I don't
Seamless.
care whether it's Atlas, whether it's Gemini, whether it's
Yes.
Workdays. I just want to ask it a question
That's right.
and get the right answer back, or ask it a question and to take the right answer. So if that requires linking off to ServiceNow, pulling back from some knowledge, or updating Workday, that's surely got to be the future. And that again is going to transform the employee experience. But how many organizations have thought that user experience through, designed it in a way that all the functions are driving to the same outcome?
Are you listening into our founders calls, Richard? I feel like you've
I'll take some free shares on the site, Chris.
I was speaking to a CHRO yesterday, Matt knows exactly what I'm referring to, and they said, Chris, if I wanted to right now, with all of our providers, Workday, ServiceNow, Deal, Visio, you name it, I could have 6 bots live tomorrow because they all have their own, right?
Yep.
So what we're trying to achieve with Atlas is exactly what you said, by integrating with all of those and bringing all of that content and insight into one space. And that's a challenge because this is brand new territory for many people as well. But luckily, we have those partnerships already because that's what we do at HR Leaders. We work with some of the great vendor partners out there, and we've already started integrating some of those as we speak, and we're in that process. Because otherwise, to your point, again, like the HR team themselves are going to have 20 different agents they're having to interact within SAP's new one and Visia's V from Visia. It's overwhelming. So
and I don't care. As a manager and employee, I really don't care what your back-end systems of record are. And I think that's important as well. This isn't the next evolution of the journey to the cloud where everybody's arguing, oh, let's rip out all of those existing investments that you've made. This should be about actually realizing the value realization of those investments that you've made over the last 5-10 years.
Well, I've got some questions in the chat.
Yeah, Britt, what are you doing?
Oh, Britt, go first. After you, Britt, I'll ask the questions from the chat. Go for it.
Oh, no, I was just thinking, we have so many disparate systems. I'm not speaking specifically to Navy Federal, but in my career, there's never been a single source of truth. It hasn't been a seamless experience. And I think about tech debt. It's kind of like when you're looking at operating model, instead of looking at the skill sets that you have, a lot of organizations will keep putting bodies at the work. Well, it's similar to technology. We don't want to create an unbelievable tech debt. And I think that's where companies get into a jam. But I love what you said, Richard, about employees. They don't care about the back end. We just stood up a steering committee for employee experience. And immediately a few members went to tools and technology. And I said, well, slow down. Let's first look at how do the employees want to feel? How do they want to leave their workday? Let's talk about the actual experience. And then we can talk about the tools that enable those experiences. But it's really the employee experience that needs to be prioritized first.
And the tech debt's interesting because actually this is an opportunity to not even care about the tech debt, to leave the tech debt in place and actually put a layer over the front end of it. Who cares if it's an old AS400 green screen, provided you can get access to the data and you can write to it. The new UI is going to be a copilot, is going to be Atlas if that's the master copilot.
Yeah. I want to go to some questions in the chat. Monica said, to all the panelists, to be honest, Monica Singh said, can you elaborate a little bit more on what you said earlier about how HR should step out of silos to reskill the organization? So
when I think about Navy Federal, HR has historically been viewed as very transactional or order takers. They haven't been viewed as strategic advisors or consultative. And we do need to enable enterprise strategic imperatives. So we can't be transactional. We do need to be at the table, and we do need to be advising. And so when I think about, we do have legacy systems, but we're also, we've done cloud core banking. We're in heavy digital transformation, and we want to catch up certain employee populations with the skills for the future. And we've got a nice balanced approach. I mean, we've got our early career programs. We've got Skill Bridged, which helps veterans translate their service experience into civilian. But for the existing employees and for engagement and retention and continuous learning and growth, those upskilling and reskilling talent mapping opportunities is where we sit deep with the business and really look at their workforce and give them the strategic workforce planning, where we have talent gaps. And then you have to determine, buy, build, or borrow. So you have to look at your labor market strategy. It's the whole human capital strategy, but that's what fuels the business's strategies. But the other thing too is when you move towards skill-based organizations, that's where you're really going to break down silos. It's not about titles anymore. It's about the skills. And that's where you're able to effectively work horizontally. Matt, Richard, what are your thoughts on that?
So first I want to interrupt and disagree with Richard. It's my opportunity to take every chance I can get to do it. So Richard's right. And
he's wrong.
And
love it.
I'm
I
leaving.
do think HR suffers from a bit of the cobbler's children analogy in that we are always in service to other people and oftentimes forget ourselves in the process. And I think that there is an upskilling activity that occurs in HR that needs to continue. So I just put that out there. Now, the lion's share of this can't be in HR because I agree with Richard's earlier comments around navel gazing. It's really easy to look in your own function and just focus in on that and try and enhance your own experience. But I spent about 15 years as an HR business partner where I was linked to business lines throughout my HR career, understanding the experience of those business units outside of the HR context. What are the pain points that they are going through? What are some of the gaps they experience strategically? What are some of the areas the organization outside of HR can support these people in having more success in role or in helping the company achieve its strategic objectives? HR needs to understand their business better than any other function in the business. And they need to understand what's happening in every part of the business. And I oftentimes, when I work with HR people, find that's a missing gap. The curiosity around the business isn't always there. You have to have curiosity in the business and what's going on. If you work for a company that you love and you adore and it's a good fit for you, this is easy. But if you don't, that's a much more difficult conversation. And I'm not saying you have to be able to do everybody's job, but you need to understand what their circumstances are like so you can help inform how the work can be done in the future. And that's where, to Richard's point, where AI plays an incredible role. If you understand somebody's current state really meaningfully and understand what's possible using best practices, including AI, you can present a path forward in the future that is more meaningful, that is more holistic. But if you're just going to reboot HR programs trying to keep them relevant, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about understanding the business and transforming the way that work is done in the business and making sure that the HR lens is not lost in that transformation.
Spot on, Matt. I couldn't put it any better. It's that work transformation piece. I think, Chris, to answer the question that was posed, like if we believe that to reimagine a business process, because let's be honest, that's what you're going to be doing with AI outside in the wider business, you need to reskill. Well, that's probably your learning and L&D function. You need to reshape and restructure the organization. That's your OD COE, your organizational development COE. You need to reward because we need to incentivize these people. Well, that's probably your rewards and your benefits team. You then need some element of responsible AI. Let's be honest, most organizations haven't got that capability. That's probably a missing gap. Now, how do we show up as a HR function in a lot of issues, in a lot of times, is through those different COE teams. That's 4 or 5 different conversations. That's 4 or 5 different teams to, I think, Britt, where you were going with the whole skills-based organization and the shaping of teams into agile pods and squads. This is actually what HR has got to do to use your terminology, Matt, of workforce transformation, actually there is a new capability, whether it's an additional role for the business partner. I would imagine it's probably not, because it's probably more of a consultative mindset, project-based set. So it's probably a different skill set even for a HR business partner. But how are you going to show up and bring all of those COEs into the business so that you can reimagine the value flows? That's for me, Chris, I think back to the question of what do I mean? What does HR have to do? And I think that's a very, very, very different skill set from what most HR functions typically have.
Agree.
One of the interesting things that you just brought to mind, Richard, is Matt and I are having those conversations every day about how we're using Atlas to upskill and reskill HR leaders in their teams. And one of the biggest blockers we had early on, which we learned from, is we struggle to find out, all of the CHROs we speak to, we speak to literally thousands.
Yeah.
They're like, this is great, Chris. I love it. Love what you're doing. And then we found out they didn't know who should own it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this interesting thing. We're like, what's happening? Everyone's saying they love it. Everyone's, we've got all these people using it. But when it comes to then rolling it out across their organizations, we missed that piece. And again, I'm just being vulnerable and open that we made a mistake. We didn't understand that. We thought just because the CHRO is excited, then everyone else is going to be excited and on board on the journey. And we realized very quickly, unless you have someone, and it's not going to be the CHRO who's specifically using the tool, implementing it, driving on a day-to-day basis, right? They might sign off, and that's the part that every organization I speak to, it's a different.
The change management.
Yeah, it was super interesting to see that.
Technical buyers, economic buyers, you'll be glad to know you're not the only one. There
are I know. I found out very quickly.
Large software companies that still struggle with that same.
I wonder who they are.
Same challenge of hooking into the right economic buyer. But I do think, ironic, this comes back to what I was saying a moment ago about responsible AI. There is almost a whole new organizational structure that companies are needing to put in place to manage the risk and the opportunity associated with this. A lot of organizations that I've been talking to over the last 18 months are kind of got stuck at the proof of concept stage because they don't have those decision-making frameworks. They don't have that AI governance board that can make sure that they're doing things in an ethical manner, that can deal with the tricky questions that come up. So yeah, it's not only about who's going to actually click the button and implement these things. That's probably going to be IT. But it's who across the business is going to actually need to sit together and go, for this use case, and Britt, let's go to your talent acquisition one, for this use case of, I don't know, AI sifting of CVs or transcribing of interviews from an AI stage, or writing my interview questions before I rock up to that interview, because as a bad line manager, I've probably not read the CV 2 or 3 minutes before the CV. Like, what's the framework within your organization to actually be able to understand the risk, understand the opportunity, understand the data that needs connecting, and actually bring this together, and then prioritize the value, and then change the workforce to unlock the value? Be keen to hear, Britt, how you guys are doing it at Navy Federal.
I mean, I love that you bring this up, because I love moving fast. I love building out tech stacks, and I'm so excited about AI with all of the possibilities. And we have an AI governance committee, and thankfully they're there because they slow me down. So we're being very thoughtful about it, because there's a lot of moving pieces to it. And to your point, there's a lot of risk. And then, of course, we've got not an old topic, but it's becoming a little older, bias. So we're trying to do this very thoughtfully with paused efforts, which is not my style, but so it's good. But yeah, we do have a governance committee. We are rolling out a few things for talent acquisition. But it took due diligence, and it took a lot of people at the table. So it's not moving as fast as I'd like, but it's being done thoughtfully, and that's important.
Are you finding it's having an impact for you? Because when I look across, let's stick with HR, but if I look at the HR function, like the biggest impact and short-term opportunity seems to have come in the talent acquisition space. And I guess on one side, you've got candidates who can now curate, customize,
Yeah.
hyper-personalize, and send out 1,000 CVs for jobs they're probably not qualified in an afternoon.
So
how are you managing
well,
to
so
deal with it?
this is where it's exciting, is that, where AI and automation in recruiting, where we want to be agile and we want to have efficiencies. These AI driven platforms, it's enabling us for real-time analysis of large candidate pools. It's allowing the recruiting teams to rapidly identify qualified candidates, and it's based on predictive data. So, in the old days, we relied solely on traditional assessments. So, the automation, we're streamlining the tasks like resume parsing, candidate communication, interview scheduling, and that's going to free up the recruiters to focus on the high value tasks. Our number one priority is candidate engagement. And then second to that, not second, equally as important, is the strategic workforce planning. So, together, these technologies, that's what's allowing us to meet the hiring demands faster, improving the candidate experience. We're able to align our recruitment strategies much better with enterprise business goals and demands. That's what it means for us. But what's exciting to me is every day there's a new capability. So, I mean, there
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Are you finding the quality of the candidate pools you're able to get to is higher? Have you done any measuring of, because I guess time and productivity is one angle to this, but quality is another angle. Are you finding that the AI is actually finding you the top quality, or are you finding that actually it's missing a whole bunch of people that
It's too soon. So we're in the infancy of this, and I literally just got approved to start implementing these platforms. So it's very exciting time, but it's too soon. But we will be looking at the metrics, the quality of hire, the efficiencies gained, but also monitoring any potential adverse impact, bias. But we're early in the journey, and to be very vulnerable, I'm learning, everyone is still learning. It's moving super, super fast. But I think the exciting part of it is there's the appetite for it, and that, at least for my recruiting team, they're very excited. We also just leverage Talent Neuron has a new AI module, so that's very exciting. LinkedIn just built in more AI capabilities. So now we're having to stand up new training modules, doing the road shows, establishing the WIFM, what's in it for them. So it's keeping that momentum of the excitement and the buy-in so that we have the adoption, because that's where I have fell down before. I think about many years ago, I was so excited about building out a tech stack for a financial service organization, and it was beautiful technology, and it all complemented each other, and it was a one-stop shop, and it was just a suite of amazing technology. Well, the problem was I did not slow down enough to establish the value to the recruiters. So when it came to the usage reports, no one was using anything. And I'm like, what the heck? Yeah, so that's really important, is establishing the value and the why, and getting the buy-in, the tech buy-in.
And understanding that even a solution that presents and offers a better experience still takes time to learn and adopt.
It
So
does.
I've been there as well. I made the mistake of trying to launch 5 software technologies simultaneously in an organization because we could. That didn't go well, spoiler alert. But what we learned in that process was we had to stagger the adoption curve, even though in every single case, it would take work off of people's plates. It would make their lives easier. It gave them better information. It was no downside literally at all, except that it was a change in routine, a change in pattern, a change in discipline. And when you have a workforce that's already overwhelmed or nearing overwhelmed, if you throw one more thing on that plate, it's just just shut down. And so you have to be mindful of that in this whole conversation. I'm the same as you. I can get super excited about what's possible, but we have to ask our population in our organizations, what are they ready for right now? And what, if we're going to put stuff on, what has to come off the plate in the short term?
You're so right. And Matt, you know what? We are experiencing high burnout. I mean, the teams are stretched, they're tired. They're really not wanting to see the next big thing. And I think something Dietrich said, our CEO, and I love this line, let's be brilliant at the basics. So, with all of this exciting technology coming at us, we're kind of focused on the copper roofs, but we still need to deal with the shag carpeting. So things are moving fast, and we do have to be careful with team capacity, and there's change saturation. That's a big topic right now. Change saturation, the next big thing keeps being introduced, and it's easy to do because it's exciting right now. There's a lot that we can do.
Yeah.
But it has to be paced.
And
it's chicken and egg.
Sorry,
Chris. I was just going to say it's chicken and egg, isn't it? Because actually, all of those low-value tasks are the ones that actually could be done away with through AI. But to get there and actually free up the capacity and actually give people back the space, you've got to go through that. Sorry, Chris.
No, I was just going to say, how did we expect? That was one question we just got through in 45 minutes.
I'm free for the next 4 hours.
If you were in the studio, we have a list of 6 or 7 points we wanted to get through. That was just one. we didn't get very far. I mean, we did get far. We shared a lot, right? And I know there's so many questions in the chat. People were asking, hey, you mentioned the idea of swarm agents earlier. Do we forecast that players like Nvidia, Microsoft, Apple are really going to take over when it comes to being the master swarm? What's the word that
I'm going to show my Microsoft bias here. I'll bet my mortgage, my kids, my wife, and myself, Microsoft will win out. And for the very simple reason, 92% of organizations use the Office suite. That's where we go to do Teams calls. That's where the majority of employees spend their time. And therefore, it only makes sense that with Copilot, that will naturally become, I think they've already got 60% penetration in the Fortune 500. That will be the master bot.
Yeah, everyone.
And all the rest will form into it.
So I think from a consumer,
that's a done deal.
From a B2B perspective, Microsoft, from a consumer perspective, I think Apple are going to play a huge role in that. They've already
Apple,
rolled
Google,
out.
whatever's on your device.
Yes,
we're all bought into one of the two ecosystems. It's the same with Microsoft.
Yeah, the other one was someone mentioned, and this is like very quick fire before I wrap up. I appreciate I'm already over time, and you both have got work to do as well. Is someone asked, based on what we discussed, how do you measure the value of this beyond just time or quality? Like, what does success look like? What are those things?
What about engagement and retention and joy at work and engagement surveys? Richard, you probably know this topic deeply, but I immediately go to, are people experiencing joy at work? Are they engaged? Because I suspect with labor market conditions, we probably have quite a few quiet quitters. But Richard, what are your thoughts on measuring the success of it? I go immediately to the people, but
so we've just done a survey literally out in the last 48 hours. So this is fresh off. This is from CEOs. 84% are saying that the return on investment boils down to the cost savings, productivity savings around employees. I think all of those, employee engagement, employee experience, they are absolutely important. But let's be honest, they're secondary and tertiary for organizations, albeit they may be espoused. When it comes to the investments at the moment, it's the balance sheet that wins out. And I think what's interesting is everyone is really excited. Those that have tried it, because HR hasn't been at the table, because they haven't restructured the value chains, because they haven't reshaped, they've not unlocked the value. Most organizations now are expecting a 4x ROI in the first 12 months of rolling out these tools. So if you aren't structured in the way that you do it, if you haven't got the framework, if HR isn't at the table, arguably leading, you're not going to unlock that value. You will be a laggard. And fundamentally, this is business defining. Did that answer the question, Chris?
It answered the question. I just wish we didn't have to stop. There's so much more to go into. But listen, that was an incredible show. We covered a lot. Thank you for everyone in the chat. I know I couldn't keep up with all the comments in there, and we're streaming to 5 different places right now. So I was switching back and forth trying to get all of your comments in there. But a great conversation. We're just at the beginning of this, and this is going to continue to evolve. You said it, Richard, earlier. It's kind of a time a point in time where I don't think I've ever seen as much the speed of this transformation and change. We always say this. We said this, in previous transformations like the internet and others, but this one just feels like something that's going to be career defining, that's going to really truly shape not just business but society as a whole. We're already seeing it in the B2C side, how it's impacting the way we buy, the way we consume. Like it's an incredible time. It's a hard time to be in the space, but it's also a very exciting time. And it's an opportunity for HR leaders to take the reign, to step up, to keep the seat at the table. But as I had Richard earlier, to really take, I do believe, side by side with the CEO, if not the CEO role, as well. So it's never been a more exciting time to be in this space. So thank you for everyone. Thank you to our amazing panelists. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you're watching on right now, if it's LinkedIn, there's a new little icon, bell icon. If you click that, next time we go live, it will send you a notification. Otherwise, you probably won't see it. So click that notification bell, whatever platform you're listening on right now. And there is one on LinkedIn too.
Is that a nag or a nudge, Chris?
Yeah, like you said earlier, I'm trying to implement the nudge theory. So make sure you get the little nudge next time we're live, or at the very least, you'll catch up on demand. So especially thank you to our friends at Joveo, as always, for supporting the show. If you click the link in the comments right here or here or here, depending on where you're watching right now, you can download their new research on the 10 best recruitment trends to attract, retain, and engage and hire talent in 2024. Apart from that, have a good weekend wherever you are in the world, and we look forward to seeing you next week at the same time. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.